The Intergalactic Military Academy stood like a fortress carved from the bones of long-dead stars, perched on the edge of the galaxy where the cold of space and the fire of training merged into one merciless force. Built by the warrior race known as the Zarnak, it was a place feared by many, respected by all, and survived by only the elite. These beings, tall, armored, monstrous in both strength and tradition, had ruled the academy for over 1,000 years, shaping soldiers for empires that stretched across spiral arms. Its courses were legendary, not because of the medals awarded, but because of the pain they inflicted. From orbital free-fall survival to the arena of blade and flame, cadets were pushed to the very brink of their existence, and many never returned. Among the most dreaded was the course called the Week of Fire, a 7-day survival gauntlet set on the desert moon of Carvex. It was a planet scorched by twin suns and frozen by ghost winds at night. Creatures stalked the shadows there, predators, older than war and faster than sound. The surface itself cracked under heat, the air turned to poison storms, and every inch was a test. To complete the Week of Fire was to earn a mark of honor across the stars. Every species that thought itself. Strong had sent candidates to Carvex. Some made it, some didn't. But none had ever mastered it. And then, something unexpected happened. In the middle of a new training cycle, a small transport ship landed at the Academy's docking bay. It was unremarkable in appearance. Old, metal, faded paint, humming engines, but what stepped out silenced the usual noise of the barracks. Not because it was massive or dangerous-looking, quite the opposite. It was a figure no taller than 5'10", wearing a simple dark uniform, a light pack slung over one shoulder, and a face that carried no fear. The being's skin was soft and exposed in places. No exoskeleton, no tusks, no glowing eyes. Just a calm expression and a name tag that read Carter J. Most of the Zarnak sergeants thought it was a joke. One of them, a grizzled veteran with scars across all 4 arms, grunted, "Where's the real soldier? This one looks like a translator." Others laughed. Some didn't. Those who had read the deeper files knew what planet the new cadet came from: Earth. A death world. There were only a few such planets in the galaxy, and Earth was one of the worst. Death worlds were categorized as planets where everything, flora, fauna, weather, terrain, was actively hostile to life. On Earth, volcanoes erupted near cities, oceans swirled with beasts, bacteria killed without warning, and the weather could shift from sun to blizzard in a single breath. Evolution didn't walk there. It ran, fought, and bled. And the beings that survived such a place were known not for strength alone, but for adaptability, endurance, and something far more dangerous: creativity under pressure. The instructors who knew the stories kept their mouths shut, but inside, something twisted. Because the last time a human cadet had trained at a galactic facility, the reports had been disturbing. One simulation turned into real chaos. A drill sergeant broke down after watching a human survive by eating poisonous insects just to finish a hunger endurance trial. Another resigned after losing a chess match to a human that had hacked the rules mid-game, legally. The files had been redacted. All that remained were whispers. Now, another had arrived. His name was Jax Carter. He didn't come in with fanfare. He didn't posture. He simply saluted, received his training chip, and waited for orders. But when the list was reviewed and it became clear that Cadet Carter had volunteered for the Week of Fire, even the bravest of the sergeants felt a twitch behind their eyes. One called a meeting. "This is insanity," growled a drill master. "He doesn't have scales, no neural cooling system. He'll melt out there," another replied. "He asked for it. Said it would be good exercise." The room went quiet. No one volunteered to accompany him. No one offered advice. What could they say? The moon of Carvex had broken seasoned warriors. It had turned stone-skinned, brutes into weeping wrecks. And yet Carter didn't even blink. As the shuttle that would take the cadets to the test site roared to life, Jack sat in the back, eyes closed, as if meditating. Around him, massive forms strapped on powered armor and carried crates of equipment. Some stared at him with pity, some with mockery. One, a tall insectoid creature with blades for limbs, leaned down and hissed, "How long do you think you'll last? Soft meat?" Jax opened one eye. "Long enough?" There was no fear in his voice. No pride either. Just a quiet certainty that made the questioner recoil. When the shuttle doors opened and the howling winds of Carvex screamed in, most cadets braced for the shock. Jax walked out first. And as his boots touched the sands of the most brutal moon in the quadrant, something ancient in the air stirred. Something that had not stirred for any other cadet before him. The week of fire had begun. But for Jax Carter of Earth, it wasn't the beginning of a trial. It was the start of a demonstration. A Deathworlder had entered the field, not with muscle, not with weapons, but with something far more dangerous. Experience. The sands of Carvex whispered ancient secrets beneath a blazing sky, but the whispers soon turned to silence when the human began to move. The rest of the cadets, creatures bred for war, born of molten rock, acid seas, and frozen voids, scattered across the barren terrain to begin their trials. They followed their assigned paths, guided by protocols, survival kits, and fear. They prepared for a long, brutal 7 days. Yet one figure broke from the expected rhythm. Jax Carter did not follow the marked trail, nor did he pause to scan the environment for safety. Instead, he walked as though he had memorized the terrain, his steps light, efficient, and unshaken. The instructors watching from the orbital command post narrowed their many eyes. Some murmured to each other in confusion. Others assumed the cadet had misunderstood the mission. But deeper scans revealed no error in programming. The mission briefing had been absorbed instantly. Every language, every symbol, every danger zone, comprehended in seconds. The human hadn't ignored the course. He had already understood it. Below, the winds kicked up clouds of heated ash. Temperatures soared beyond 50 degrees Celsius. The terrain cracked with tremors, and venomous flyers circled above. One cadet, a Kralaxian with heat-resistant armor, tripped while scaling a fissure ridge and was forced to activate an emergency beacon. Another became paralyzed after consuming a glowing root, mistaking it for hydration fruit. Hours crawled by, as the field monitors tracked signs of struggle, pain, panic. Yet one beacon moved faster than all others. That beacon did not stop. It advanced with terrifying precision, like a machine. Within the first 20 minutes, the human had crossed a third of the required survival route. At Checkpoint 1, where most cadets took refuge from a poison storm in chemical shelters, the human stood upright, breathing the filtered air through a makeshift respirator constructed from vines, minerals, and a thermal cloth torn from his own uniform. The sergeants monitoring the footage blinked in disbelief. "That filter is more efficient than our tech-issued one," muttered one with 8 mandibles. Another leaned forward and barked, "How did he even know the mineral composition of that rock?" Questions piled up faster than answers. At Checkpoint 2, which required cadets to secure food, the human did not waste time hunting or hiding. Instead, he approached a nest of flame beetles, creatures with exoskeletons that exploded on contact, and simply tossed dust into the air to confuse their heat senses. One quick strike to the base of their shells rendered them unconscious. With practiced calm, the cadet cooked the meat using solar-reflective panels made from scraps of his gear. The scent of roasted beetle carried for miles. While others were starving, conserving strength, or vomiting from eating toxic berries, Jax Carter was calmly enjoying a protein-rich meal. At that moment, an instructor dropped his datapad in disbelief. The data showed the cadet's vitals. Perfect. Not even an elevated heart rate. The human was not surviving. He was cruising. By the 35th minute, the human reached the third quadrant, the most dangerous. Lava fissures split the ground, and seismic sensors warned of eruptions. Even the bravest instructors avoided simulations of this sector. Automated drones deployed to assist in rescue often melted mid-flight, yet the lone figure pressed forward. He did not hesitate when the lava flowed close. He studied the terrain, leapt between cooling rocks, and navigated the volatile landscape with a kind of brutal elegance. When the skies darkened and acid rain began to fall, the human took shelter beneath a ridge, one that none had noticed before. Scans confirmed it had been there all along, but hidden behind natural camouflage. Somehow he had seen through the illusion. Inside the command center, a hushed argument began. One Zarnak general growled, "No cadet has ever reached this far in under a day. This is impossible." A silent Solari technician, with glowing veins and silver skin, simply whispered, "It's not impossible. It's human." No one laughed. At the 48th minute, Jax Carter reached the final obstacle. A bridge made of crumbling stone, suspended over a gorge filled with magnetic storms and electric wind. Normally, this section alone took 5 hours to cross with careful climbing. One misstep would lead to instant disintegration. Without waiting, the cadet pulled ropes made from heat-threaded beetle fiber, materials gathered earlier without anyone realizing, and anchored them to the stabilizing points most hidden beneath the ledges. Not even the designers of the course had documented those points. He crossed in minutes. The gorge howled, sparks flew, the rocks beneath him cracked. And yet, he reached the other side, completely untouched. At the end of the path stood the signal beacon, untouched by any living being for years. The course had been designed to break mines. No one had ever completed it without activating at least 2 emergency failsafes. Now, the beacon blinked green. He placed his hand on it. The system chimed. "Course completed. Time, 59 minutes and 38 seconds. Silence followed. Then panic. Back at the academy, alarms sounded. Not for danger, but because the system assumed it was a false read. Administrators rushed to confirm the beacon's status. Drones were dispatched. Footage was reviewed again and again. Every step had been real. No shortcuts, no tricks, just ruthless logic, fearless action, and adaptation faster than any species had ever witnessed. Drill instructors, hardened by centuries of battle, stared in shock. One even collapsed onto a bench and muttered in disbelief. He didn't survive the trial. He conquered it. And the worst part? He hadn't even broken a sweat. Shockwaves from the completed survival course spread across the entire training complex like wildfire through oxygen-rich air. The orbital monitors, command room officers, and even off-duty instructors, hardened beings from warrior civilizations, across dozens of systems, stood frozen, watching the replay in silence. Their disbelief turned to something heavier, something colder. No glitch, no anomaly. The footage held up under every scan, from thermal to molecular analysis. Every step, every breath, every decision the human made had been deliberate. Instructors had always warned their trainees that Carvex would test not just strength, but intelligence, endurance, and adaptability. It was a crucible meant to push elite soldiers to their limits over 7 long days. Yet a single Terran cadet, without any augmentations or alien symbiotes, had cut through the nightmare in less than 1 hour. The Council of Senior Instructors, known as the Iron Assembly, gathered in the emergency war chamber, not for war, but to address the strange new data point, Jax Carter, the Deathworlder. Some of them argued it had to be a breach of code, a fluke, perhaps even a secret mission planted by Terran High Command. But deeper investigation only unearthed more troubling facts. The cadet had entered the academy like any other recruit, after passing the standard galactic assessments. No signs of genetic manipulation, no external tech, just raw human ability. One instructor, an old grizzled veteran of the Osvari front, spoke softly. This wasn't a show of skill. It was something worse. He saw the course and understood it instantly. He predicted it, moved through it like he had designed it himself. It wasn't just the speed, it was how calm he had been, how prepared, as if survival came not from training, but from instinct, from experience passed down through a savage lineage. The phrase began to ripple through the hallways. He didn't adapt to the planet. The planet had to adapt to him. The Academy, built into the cliffside of the gas moon Trelmar 9, operated like a fortress. Walls glowed with kinetic shields, drones hovered in quiet patterns, and alien species coexisted in fierce discipline. But now, whispers followed the human cadet's name like shadows. Trainees who once scoffed at the hairless, small-boned Terran now avoided his gaze. They spoke in hushed voices, some in awe, some in fear. In the mess hall, during nutrient cycles, Carter ate alone. Not because he wanted to, but because no one dared join him. Not after the footage. Not after he walked, out of a trial that most barely survived. One Cernic recruit, twice his height with armored skin and a crown of bone spines, tried to challenge him out of pride. The Cernic race prided itself on combat, especially hand-to-hand. The challenge was formal, meant to restore balance and respect. But Carter didn't respond with aggression. He simply stepped aside, reading the opponent's pattern with a glance. When the Cernic struck, the human dodged and placed a single open palm against his shoulder. One push. The Cernic hit the floor, groaning, unable to breathe. Carter said nothing, turned away, and left the room in silence. From that moment, no one challenged him again. The instructors, however, were not silent. They debated through the night. They pulled ancient war records. They consulted battlefield simulations, and what they found chilled them more. Every historical example of human behavior under pressure, from their ancient Earth wars to space expeditions and hostile systems, showed the same pattern: short learning curves, unpredictable strategies, and ruthless effectiveness. But what truly frightened the instructors wasn't that Carter had finished the course. It was the growing suspicion that he hadn't even tried his hardest. His biometrics suggested minimal exertion. His adrenaline levels remained stable. He had, for lack of a better word, been bored. The Council could not comprehend how such a species, from a small, resource-starved planet on the edge of the galaxy, could produce individuals like this. One Xanthari tactician finally said aloud what others had only dared to think. What, if this is their baseline? The idea lingered in the air like poison gas. Panic crept in, disguised as curiosity. Analysts began watching other humans across the galaxy, those enrolled in other academies or military forces. Similar patterns emerged. Not all were like Carter, but many showed shocking feats of improvisation, tenacity, and defiance. Reports poured in. Humans who broke siege simulations by turning kitchen tools into weapons, who outlasted endurance courses by modifying the test environments with nothing but instinct, who turned ambush drills against their instructors using nothing but dirt, vines, and laughter. The Deathworlder reputation had always been somewhat mythical, spoken with both mockery and mystery. But now it was real. It had a face. Jax Carter became a ghost walking among giants, and those giants started checking their footing. In private, the instructors considered changing the structure of the survival course itself. If humans could finish in under an hour, then the course no longer tested what it was meant to. But altering the course would admit something worse: fear, and fear was unacceptable in the Academy. So instead they called a meeting, an unprecedented one. They summoned Jax Carter to the central dome. All instructors, representatives of every warrior species, and even the AI administrators gathered. The room was massive, carved from crystalline alloy, pulsing with starlight from above. Carter stood at the center. No armor, No weapon, just his standard cadet uniform. His posture was casual, almost relaxed, as if unaware of the weight in the air. The lead instructor, a towering beast of iron and venom known as General Vorak, addressed him directly. "Do you know what you've done, Terran?" Carter raised an eyebrow. "Passed the test?" Vorak clenched a fist but said nothing for a moment. Then he leaned closer and growled, "You've rewritten what it means to survive, and that terrifies us." Silence followed, but Carter didn't flinch. He didn't speak either. He just stood there, calm and human. And that silence, that calm, terrified the instructors more than any weapon ever could. The atmosphere within the Galactic Academy had shifted. Long-standing traditions, hardened protocols, and ancient pride of warrior races now sat like fragile glass underfoot, all because of a single Terran cadet whose name echoed through the ranks like an ancient warning. Jax Carter, the Deathworlder, had done more than break a record. He had broken the very idea of what the Academy believed about strength, survival, and superiority. The day after the Council's confrontation, silence followed him everywhere, not from respect, but from quiet confusion laced with fear. Instructors reviewed centuries of training models only to find them outdated when compared to what the human cadet had demonstrated. Some proposed a full recalibration of the training system. Others quietly suggested restricting Terrans from certain courses altogether, not out of hatred, but out of discomfort. One by one, high command representatives arrived from different sectors of the galaxy, not for ceremony or honor, but to witness the cadet for themselves. The Glavari ambassador, a being of shifting crystal and deep telepathy, observed him from afar and murmured through thought speech that his neural patterns showed chaotic serenity, something their kind had never detected before. Military observers from the hardened Draken warfront took back data to their simulation chambers, only to find their battle algorithms failed to map Terran logic accurately. Eventually, whispers turned to formal action. A new trial was crafted, one designed in secret, not announced publicly, and carefully monitored. It was called the Labyrinth. No recruit had seen it. It was a hybrid of ancient combat zones, psychological traps, simulated betrayal, gravity distortion, and complete isolation, all stretched over 48 hours. It wasn't meant to be fair. It was built to humble. Jax Carter received the summons without surprise. No questions asked. No hesitation. While others would have requested preparation time or tactical analysis, the Deathworlder simply nodded once and stepped forward. The gates to the labyrinth opened, and a silence blanketed the Academy once more, as if the building itself held its breath. Monitoring stations lit up across the galaxy, military centers, research colonies, and private security guilds all tuned in. And what they saw was not chaos. It was elegance. Inside the labyrinth, the cadet moved like someone who had lived through worse. He adapted instantly to gravity fluxes, memorized movement patterns of artificial enemies after a single encounter, and even bypassed psychological tests by using crude yet effective logic, flipping entire systems against themselves. One mental trap tried to fracture his sense of self with memory manipulation, a favorite tool designed to drive recruits mad. Yet Jax Carter smiled mid-sequence and muttered, "Nice try," then redirected the simulation code back into its loop, trapping the trap itself. In combat zones, he moved through drone formations without hesitation, dismantling their routines by targeting control hubs hidden beneath debris piles, something even the creators hadn't expected him to guess. Hours passed, then minutes, then seconds. The labyrinth, designed to consume 2 days of physical and mental endurance, came to an end in just under 3 hours. Not a scratch marked his skin. Not a flicker of panic crossed his face. And when the exit opened, and the light from the Academy bathed him once again, the only sound was the quiet hum of the wind through the alloy halls. The instructors waited, not with medals or applause, but with questions. Before any of them spoke, Carter looked around and said almost softly, "That one was better. More fun." General Vorak, towering and stone-faced, approached, voice low. "How do Terrans do it?" The question wasn't official. It wasn't a test. It was genuine curiosity, like a warrior asking another for a glimpse into his soul. Carter thought for a moment, glanced at the distant sky beyond the academy walls, and replied, "We come from a world where everything tries to kill us. Weather, animals, disease, other humans. Survival isn't training. It's how we grow up. And sometimes, we learn to like the challenge." No arrogance coded his words, no boast, just simple truth. That answer rippled through the galaxy, faster than any weapon ever fired. Recruit programs began studying Earth's environment. Simulation developers requested access to Terran psychology archives. War colleges began rewriting entire doctrines around the concept of Terran adaptability. And on planets where once human capability had been dismissed, respect began to bloom, uneasy, cautious, but real. Meanwhile, back on the academy grounds, something even more unexpected happened. The instructors, those who had once viewed Terran methods as unpredictable chaos, began inviting Jax Carter to meetings, not as a student, but as a consultant. His analysis helped redesign outdated training methods. His improvisational skills introduced new philosophies to long-static curriculums. Slowly, the Deathworlder became not just a cadet, but a silent architect of the new way forward. And yet, through all this, he remained distant, quiet, always watching more than speaking. Other cadets, once fearful, began asking questions. And Carter, never one to seek glory, shared stories, not of victory, but of mistakes, pain, lessons burned into his bones from growing up on a world where tomorrow was never promised. Over time, the academy itself transformed. Less about proving power through dominance, more about understanding survival through resilience. The Deathworlder hadn't just shocked the system, he had changed it, forever. And far beyond the academy, in corners of the galaxy untouched by war or politics, a new quiet warning began spreading across military networks, often repeated in briefing, rooms and war councils alike. If a Terran cadet joins your side, listen. If one joins your enemy, pray. The legend of Jax Carter, the one who walked through a 7-day course in a single hour, who conquered the labyrinth in 3, who made the most feared instructors rethink everything they believed, became etched in galactic history not as a myth, but as a moment when the stars themselves paused to watch a human walk.